Okay, so I get the honor to announce Amy Anderson. She is the managing partner of REES Capital Investment, which is an angel investing firm. She's the founder of iPop, which is a charity focused on entrepreneurship and creating a pathway of self-reliance to people. She as a single mom of 2 kids, she started and grew and sold MediConnect, which is a healthcare tech company, for $377 million. So she is an awesome boss woman. She serves on 13 boards around the country, including here at Utah State in the Clark Center for Entrepreneurship. She just released her first book, What Awesome Looks Like. Right here, you can look and find out what it looks like. But she's hilarious, and so you're about to find that out. The book hasn't even published, but she got Forbes to send us some copies, so they'll be sold out the doors just after the meeting, so make sure to grab one and have her sign it. So give a hand to the ultimate boss woman, Amy Anderson.
Well, it is so good to be here with you. I love being called the ultimate boss woman. If my husband could call me that. This is rolling, by the way. So I give a lot of different talks at a lot of different events and on different topics like fear and raising capital and developing a company culture and all these things. And I've spoken at the universities a lot of times. And so tonight what I want to do is something a little different. I want to mix it up and take a little bit of a whole bunch of different talks and throw it out there with you. It's going to be like our ADD version of a whole bunch of talks. And given that I have ADD and do take meds for it, and I'm totally okay with that. But I want to shoot through a bunch of stuff quick and try to cover some interesting topics in the event that any of you have heard me give the entrepreneurship talk before. Raise your hand if you've heard me speak, not at last week's girls' meeting, because that is not what we're covering today, but raise your hand if you've heard me speak before. Oh, see, I could have given the old one. I didn't even have to mix it up for you people. We're going to have fun with it, though, especially because I have my Britney Spears, Hit Me Baby One More Time mic going on here. This is awesome. So let's start. I always have to give kind of a little intro about myself. I grew up in a family of 10 kids, grew up all over the country in Oregon, Washington, Michigan, Virginia, Tennessee, Texas, California, and then came to Utah. Had an awesome father whose father, this father's father, was your dean's mission president in Germany. That's where the best missionaries serve, according to my grandpa. Grew up all over the country. My dad was FBI in a family of 10 kids, and my goal was to come out to BYU and marry that guy and have 10 kids myself. That was the goal. People asked me at dinner, what did I come to college for? I came to find a husband, and just assume that's what everybody did. And you know, things started down that path. Okay, this is awesome. First time I've shown this in public. This is me at BYU my freshman year. Dude, look at that hair. I just want you to know I was single-handedly keeping the hairspray industry in business back then. That took some serious effort. Don't judge. That was actually hot back then, okay, people? And I started down the path and then ended up divorced, single mom with 2 little kids, college dropout, because I dropped out at the time to put my husband through, which is what you did back then. Do not do that now, ladies. Everyone's education is equally important, and men encourage the women to stay and finish their education as well, because you just never know where life's going to take either of you. It is equally important for both of you to get your education. Okay, so that was me. And the reason I give that little intro is because I want people to understand that if I could go from that girl to the woman that started and sold a company for $377 million, then like no one in this room has any excuse to ever not go after anything, because I couldn't even balance a checkbook. I bounced so many checks my freshman year. Now, this is partly my dad's fault for not teaching me, is my opinion. But I bounced so many checks, they had to fly my dad in because I was only 17 when I came to BYU. He had to meet with the bank president because they couldn't actually put me in jail because I was underage. And but I didn't know. I just thought you could write these. They gave me a little paper checkbook thing. I'm like, sweet, just buying stuff. This is awesome. Like, where was this been my whole life, right? That is a true story, a true story. And just by the way, Zion's Bank has forgiven me because Scott Anderson, the president, and I are very dear friends now. And I have made it up to him in droves, okay? So at that point in life, for me, a lot of the question was, what do I do? I mean, I dropped out of college. I didn't really know where to go with my life. So people would like, do something you love, right? For me, bubble baths and shopping. Didn't know how to make money off it back then because the internet shopping thing was not, like the internet was not even Okay, Windows was brand new. Okay, cell phones came out my freshman year in college. How sad is that? Like, how old I am. Okay, so do something you love, which I don't know how to make money off that. Do something you believe in, right? Because a lot of times, especially in this culture that we're raised in here, we do better when we're putting our hearts towards someone else. That does not mean it has to be a nonprofit, people. Can we just point out that nonprofits only exist because for-profits were able to donate to them, right? So you can do a lot of good in the world in a for-profit business. Please know that that's the case. But the most important thing is do something with what you have. Okay, so if you guys were to look at what you have right now, what did I know? Well, I grew up in high school. I would actually go to work full time. I'd go to DECA and then go to work because I had started a year ahead and I was able to jump forward in grades. And I was done, but I had to finish seminary because I had the early warning kind that you people here in Utah totally cheat the system on, for the record. But I knew healthcare because I'd had these jobs in healthcare, right? So I'd learned all these things in healthcare. So I had that going for me. I was really good with software, not the understanding how to develop software. I feel like this is super loud, or is it just me? Is it too loud? Okay. I was really good at using software, like the front end of it, right? So I had that. What resources did I have access to? You guys look at your resources today, okay? I know a lot of you are like, I'm my own person, I don't need my parents. I'm sorry, but God put you in that family for a reason. That is a resource. Use it, okay? Use the connections your family has, the people that your parents know. You all have computers, laptops, cameras. Okay, how many of you guys have a social media account anywhere? Raise your hand. How many of you know how to get a like on it? Have you ever gotten at least one like? Okay. You people have a skill. That is a marketable, sellable skill that can get you a job. Okay, you came born knowing how to get likes. You were already qualified for something. Okay, the community and campus, you guys are at Utah State. Dude, look around the campus. If you are not taking advantage of every resource on this campus, you are crazy. These are free resources for you, people, right? You're not going to get that because once you graduate, they're like, sorry, you'd have to pay to come and use the campus now. So take advantage of every opportunity you have on campus. That is going to lead to a network you have no idea. When people say, oh, why should I finish college? You dropped out, you did well. Because you know what? You can. And the things that you can tap into here worth the rest of your life. This is going to be a network. If you look around this room, I know it's probably shocking, but a bunch of you in this room are going to be super successful. And a lot of people are going to work for some of those successful people, okay? So every connection you have here at the university is going to pay off in your life. What are you passionate about? Now, here's the thing I struggle with. Some people say, oh, you got to do a job that you're passionate about. I'm passionate about shoes and my family, okay? So frankly, now that Zappos is around, I realize I probably could have done that and made a lot of money and been like super happy. But my family is really the passion. And I think at the end of the day, that's what most of you in this room would say is your passion is actually your family. Taking care of a family, right? Taking care of yourself and your family, providing a good life for them. That is the real passion. And you can achieve that in a whole bunch of jobs. Work is not always fun, okay? It's not always fun. There's going to be hard things even if you love the industry you're in. So the passion is providing for your family, and you do what needs to be done to make that happen. Don't be like, well, I'm only going to do this job if I like it, because I hated a lot of the jobs I did. But they taught me stuff that was really valuable later in life, okay? And so there's more than one way to fulfill the passion, because guess what? Making money in healthcare wasn't my passion. Healthcare wasn't. It's just what I knew. But man, it afforded a whole lot of shoes. So really, you can fulfill that passion in lots of ways, okay? And get to work. Dude, nothing's going to happen while you're sitting still. My grandpa gave me some of the best advice. This is the other grandpa, not the one that was his mission president. But he said, Amy, just get up, do something, do anything, just make a start. And that's really the point. You could talk about it all day long, think about it all day long. You are going to have more movement when you're doing something, even if it's the wrong, not the wrong ethically something, but like if you take a job that's not the right job for the rest of your career, that's going to teach you things you'll use for the next job. So stop talking and start doing. The best advice ever, though, was someone asked me, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Now, if I would have said, how many of you knew what your career was going to be when I started my talk, raise your hand. How many of you think you know what you want to do? Okay. If I was to say, what would you do if you weren't afraid? How many of you would have a different answer than what you thought when I started? Okay, super important question to ask yourself. What would I do if I wasn't afraid? For me, it was like being an entrepreneur sounded really cool. Okay, it wasn't even a thing in college. You couldn't get a degree in it. You guys are so lucky that you have that option now because we didn't. For me, I thought it seemed cool, though, to run your own business and to be in control. And here I had these two little tiny kids, and I thought, man, if I'm the boss, I can take them to work with me, and no one can stop me, right? And so I sat down, I made a goal poster when I was 23 years old. And on that goal poster, I had things like, I wanted to win Entrepreneur of the Year, right? That's like the biggest award that you could get in entrepreneurship back then. I want to be on the cover of business magazines and meet Bill Gates because Windows was brand new. And all these different things. And I made that poster, and I stuck it on the wall. And we're going to come back to that poster. How many people actually think goal posters are kind of goofy? It's okay, I'm not offended. I promise you, I'm not offended. Because I actually thought they were too. So the people that do, raise your hand again, real high, someone, give me some, okay. We're gonna come back to it, and I want, when you hear my story, I want you to tell me what you think at the end. How to find, people are like, how do you find a business opportunity? If you want to start a company, how do you do it, okay? You pay attention, especially when people complain. For me, I was working in medical offices, and there was this thing where people would come in with their insurance card, we'd take it, and I'd have to go and I'd pull their chart, the paper one, and I'd have to open it, and there's little prongy things that you bend down, I'd have to get it out, make a photocopy, and then put it in the chart, and then file it again. I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. I hated doing it, and I was like, man, I can't be the only person that hates this in medical offices all over the country. People are doing the same thing. And this is when Windows was brand new and scanning, and I thought, why can't you just scan something, and why can't you just scan it and have it in the computer in a picture? Right? Which sounds really basic, right? It was like this new technology that had come out, but none of the systems were doing it. That's how ideas are born. And the more people that you hear, the size of the market, it's the more people that problem affects, right? It wasn't like an earth-shattering problem, but it was a huge time suck to have to make those insurance cards and then file the charts and all those things. Those are where ideas come from. And so you're on a campus, you hear your friends complain about this or that or the other, start to really ask a lot of people if they have that same issue. And the more people that have the issue, that's the more people you can sell it to. And when I say size of market matters, it means the bigger the number of people that want that problem solved, right? Healthcare, perfect, everyone struggles with healthcare. The bigger number of people it is, the less you have to win over for a company to make money. Okay, whereas if you do something super niche where there's only 100 people that are ever going to need it, you got to sell all 100 people to even make a living. So think about the size of the market when you think about ideas. And the impact. Sometimes when you know what you're doing is going to make people's lives better, it's exciting to go after it more. Okay, dumb ideas. How many of you guys have had an idea and then been afraid to share it because you're like, that's a really dumb idea? Or if it was a good idea, someone smarter than me would have thought of it. Right? Because I'm not that smart, so it can't be that good of an idea. Well, let's look at this. Slanket. How many of you guys have ever had these? There's a bunch of brands now, knockoffs. Yeah, right? Did I have a Wonder Woman Slanket? I'm going to admit it. I'm proud. Okay, this got started because a kid in college was complaining he was cold playing video games. So his mom took a sleeping bag and cut holes in it so he could put his arms through and stay warm. It was probably some kid in Logan, come to think of it. It's so cold in here, right? And then his arms were cold. Now his arms got cold, so he called his mom, what all college kids do. And his mom put sleeves on it, and that is how the Slanket was born. Is it a dumb idea? I don't know, because we probably all have one in this room, right? Making millions. Doggles for your dog. They're goggles for the dog. These are sold all across the country. Dumb idea? Oh my gosh, but they're making millions, right? So not that dumb. What about pillow pets? Do not act like you don't have these. Raise a hand. Yeah. I know those things are disgusting. You should wash them once in a while. Taking it from a mother who has children that drool on their Cosmo pillow pet every day. Those things are selling over $300 million a year in sales. I would have said dumb idea, right? If it makes money, honestly, not in an unethical way, it's not a dumb idea, you guys. And some of the most brilliant ideas never get out there because no one wants to pay for them. I do now, I don't. A guy got broke up with, couldn't take the ring back to the jewelry store, got upset about it, started a website called I Do Now, I Don't, where he could sell the ring. Other people could sell stuff, turned a negative situation into a really profitable business, right? You can even upload videos on how she destroyed your life and ruined everything, which I don't recommend doing. Those come back to bite you later in life, people. But you know, it's a dumb idea, but not so much if it's making money. So with scanning insurance cards or changing the user interface on a software where it was Windows-based instead of DOS-based, dumb idea? Well, I didn't think so. So I sat down and drew out a business plan on a napkin. That is a true story. Every good thing happens on the back of a napkin, I've decided. And I raised $23,000 in seed money from an uncle and a father and a brother, and that's how my journey started, okay? And that led me to do things I never thought I could. I was afraid. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was a 23-year-old girl, college dropout, 2 little kids in Utah, did not fit the mold. I'm LDS and grew up LDS, and so I fit that part of the mold, except for nothing about the way my life looked fit the mold, right? That's scary. And I had a lot of like, what do people think? I'm a divorced mom, all this stuff, what do they think? And I had to learn to get over that part, because you know what, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks. You could be the best person ever and people aren't gonna like you. So all that matters is what God thinks, or if you don't believe in God, the universe, whatever higher power you believe in, that's what matters. Focus on that, because you cannot control anybody else, ever, okay? The whole social media thing and how it's just destroyed people's self-esteem is because everybody's forgetting that it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. You know what God thinks or your higher power thinks, that's what you focus on, because you can control that. Okay, so that was a really powerful lesson for me to learn, and it changed my ability to try things and do things without being so afraid to fail. The other thing I learned is you have 2 ways you see yourself. There's the picture in your head of what you see, and then there's that picture of who you want to be, right? I love the little kitty cat looking at the lion. For me, there's a trick I learned, which is the fake it till you make it. You can replace the picture in your head with who you want to be, and do that until you learn how to do it yourself. For me, it was her, right? Because who doesn't want to be Wonder Woman? I mean, she's saving the world in tights. It's like awesome, right? So for me, when I was scared, this trick worked for me my whole life. Anytime I'm scared, I close my eyes. I'm like, okay, turn into Wonder Woman. This is the OG for you that have seen the movie. This was the Linda Carter, the original Wonder Woman, okay? She's like super cool. I got to meet her at the premiere of the new Wonder Woman, and I was like, oh, life goal. Okay, so, and by the way, she looks amazing. She still looks that pretty. Unbelievable. But I just would pretend to be Wonder Woman, and that got me through these scary moments, right? Be like, go be Wonder Woman in that room, do what you need to do, come out of that room, and you can go back to being insecure. And the more I did that, the more confident I grew. So use that trick, because you all know you have that little superhero you think you are, especially the men. We know you guys do, right? Let's talk a little about capital. This is going to sound funny because I'm an angel investor, and people would think, oh yeah, she wants to give out money. I don't, because I don't actually care about, I don't do things for that purpose. I try to do things for the right reason. And for me, the worst advice I could give you would be to go raise a bunch of money. And let me tell you why. When I started my first company, it was $23,000 I took. I had to buy a $5,000 copier. That was like the biggest purchase I had ever made in my life at that point. I had more anxiety over that stupid copy machine, but it was required if I wanted to sell software for another company. And that's how I originally started my first business, was this other company. I started selling their software until I started to make money and become profitable. I would make a sale, and then I'd hire someone, and then I'd make a sale, and then I'd hire someone to help me fulfill it. And I grew it as I could, making sure that I was always profitable in the bank each time. Okay, that taught me some lessons that were invaluable. And here's the problem today. I think there's so, kind of the trend, it seems like, is to say, oh, go raise a bunch of money at a really crazy high valuation, and you can go brag, oh, we're worth this $1 billion on our valuation. Valuation means nothing when you sell. That's what matters. Okay, raising money, that's just a way to say we're taking 10% and justifying why they took the 10%. But you're giving up money, equity, every time you raise money. So it's not positive to raise money. And I use my shoe analogy. Like, before I'd ever had a pair of Christian Louboutin shoes, I used to be fine with regular shoes, right? Like, they were fine. I'd never had an issue with them. Then I get my first pair of Christian Louboutins, and suddenly it's like, it's no longer a want. It's just a need, right? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Like, you could live off of next to nothing, right? And then all of a sudden you have some extra money, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, but I need this. When you have too much money to spend, you're going to spend it. That individual shoe, that first pair of shoes, turned into an obsessive need for shoes, right? That's my closet. I know. Little moment. It's a problem, people. It's a problem. Now, on a positive note, I don't ever buy a pair of shoes I can't afford. Okay, so let's just... But my point in saying that is... I want you to know I designed every inch of that closet, okay? I'm just saying, it's like a spiritual moment walking in there. But the point is I was fine living in a little, when I had my first two kids, we were living in a 700 square foot apartment that I couldn't have a kitchen table because I had a crib there. I mean, and I was okay, I was happy. I was buying my furniture at DI and getting sheets that I could staple with a staple gun to an old couch from the who knows how old, right? And I was happy. And as we get more money, suddenly it's like we need it all. So if you can be smart and not go raise a bunch of funding when you start your business, learn with just a little tiny bit of money and then try, because you're going to learn these principles and these tools and this discipline that is going to make you so successful. I watch these young people that go and raise, I live right in Sandy in that Silicon Slopes area, and I see a lot of young people starting companies, and they go and try to raise several $1 million day one because someone's going to give it to them, right? There is people that will give it to you. But the problem is they end up not ever learning those principles of discipline and how to accomplish things without spending a lot of money. My whole career, I was able to accomplish tremendous things without raising a lot of money because of the fact that I had to learn how to do it with next to nothing. And you'll be so much better for it, okay? The next thing you need to know is if your idea is good, people will fund it. And the way you're going to know if it's fundable is if someone will buy the product you're selling. It is not a hard sales job. By the time I raised my first money outside venture capital, and interestingly enough, I didn't know back then that there was only 2 women in this. I was the second woman ever in the state of Utah to ever have raised venture capital. First person was Carla Miney. She's a dear friend of mine. I didn't know women didn't raise venture capital. Who knew, right? But by the time I went to raise, I actually had a profitable company. Now, sadly, I don't even know what the term EBITDA meant. And I remember meeting with my dad once to go over the financials, and he's like, wow, you're running a company at like 28% EBITDA. This was when I first started out. He's like, that's really good. I'm like, awesome. I had no idea what EBITDA was. I don't even know what that means, because I dropped out of my econ class because it was just hard. And so, so sad. I know it's killing the dean over here. But listen, they should teach it in a way that's easier to understand, relate it to things we understand. When my kids wanted me to watch the basketball tournament, I'm like, I don't get the whole Sweet 16 and the whatever 8. And they're like, okay, Mom. It's like walking into Nordstrom's, you got the high heels and the flip-flops, okay? And they're competing. And I'm like, okay, I'm with you now, right? If we could get teachers to teach like that, where they related to something we're familiar with, life gets so much easier. But that's the thing is when you're out there teaching, you can tell your friend and they'll be like, dude, that's a really cool idea. Okay, would you pay for it? If they won't, it's not a good business idea. Okay, so one of the tricks I did in my company before I would go develop new software, I told you guys I started my first business selling someone else's software. And then when they wouldn't put in the features I wanted, like the scanning and things like that, I decided to raise money to go and build my own. But I was a profitable company by that point, right? So it was easier to raise. And every time I ever raised after that, I was already profitable, so it put me in the driver's seat. When I sold my company, there was no preferred shareholders. And if you haven't learned what that term means, it means that they don't just get their percentage, they get their percentage and then they share another bigger percentage. So it really is, you're giving it more, okay? I didn't have to do that, which is really rare in business. But it's because I was already a profitable entity. Because I was willing to get out there and hustle and sell, sell, sell. So I would meet with customers, I would bring in a design for a new software, and before I would go build it, I would ask the customer, would you pay for this? Yes, how much? Let's negotiate something, right? If they say yes too quickly, you're charging too little. If they say no too quickly, you're charging too much. And that's literally the science. I don't care how many classes you take, that's what it comes down to with setting prices. It's all about what someone's gonna pay for it, okay? And to each person, it's gonna be a little different, and that is something you'll spend a lot of time figuring out what's the perfect way to market it. But if someone's willing to do it, they will. Your credibility is never going to be gained in chaos. If you come to meet with an investor and you don't know what contracts you've signed, if you don't have some stuff put together that spells out, I'm going to have to spend this much to make this much, you're not going to raise. So you've got to get organized. We took all of our contracts and started with something as basic as an Excel sheet originally. And I would write down every contract I ever signed in Excel with a link to it, and I would read every little aspect of that contract. Never sign anything you didn't read first. That is your integrity. When you sign something, I know you all have clicked through Angry Birds and Fortnite and all that, and you've never even read those contracts. Mistake, okay? Don't ever sign something you don't read, because they own you and your data and everything else about you, okay? So you need to read stuff. But when you go to meet with investors, nothing will impress them more than coming in organized with you knowing what you've signed and what you've obligated yourself to, and them seeing the integrity you have of tracking those things. The other thing is we would track every metric of our business and make sure we were compliant on it, and we would make dashboards. And again, we started with Excel little sheets, and then we would take that and put it into a database, and then, so it would like develop over time, because you can't spend all that money up front, right? But the more we knew what our metrics were, we knew that if we sold this, it needed this many people to deliver it. The more you can think through those things, the more quickly you're going to raise capital. Okay, how you communicate matters. For the men, who's married? Which men are married in the room? Okay, if your wife comes to you and says, can we talk? What happens? Yeah, you get stressed out, right? If your wife says, hey, I need you to come to Costco with me. Like, right? Quilted bear is even worse. My husband's like, that's like the 7th ring of hell, really, truly. It's really hard. There was some experiments done where they put men and women in a room, and then they took them out of the room into another room and said, how many people around you were there, and tell us about their lives, and the men knew nothing, right? But then they said, okay, and the women knew everything. They went in the next room and said, okay, how many exits were there in the room? The women had no idea, but the men knew every exit and where it was. And what they learned about that is that men, before they can ever engage in a conversation, they have to know 3 things. How painful is this going to be? How long is it going to take? And when we're done talking, what do you want from me? Okay? This will like save relationships everywhere. So if your wife came to you and said, hey, real quick, I just need 3 seconds of your time to ask you, I need you to come to Costco with me. We're going to buy this one thing. When we're done, you can go play Fortnite. Done, right? Seriously. Women, that is the secret to a happy marriage, I promise you. Okay, the interesting thing is, that's how men engage. So just so you men know, this is going to take about an hour. We're going to have ice cream when it's done, and really the only thing you have to do for me afterward is make a goal poster if you want to. Okay, that's it. See, now they're all engaged. Okay, what's really important to know is in business, women operate the same way. So if you call someone, if someone calls me and says, hey, Amy, can you give me a call back? I'm like, I'm in that seventh ring. You know, I'm like, nah, it's a black hole of I don't know where this is going. But if someone calls and said, Amy, I have one question, it's going to take 3 minutes, and when I'm done, that's all I need from you, I'm like, okay, I'll call you back. Remember that. When you need to communicate with people, remember that. Do not go in leaving it open-ended, because we all get that, we're all busy. It's a panic feeling if you don't know the ending. How painful is it going to be? What do you need from me when you're done? Okay? So when you communicate with investors, you've got about 30 seconds. So use it wisely. And if you're not doing it right, try it again with the next person. It's also okay not to know it all, you guys. Here's the thing. Your integrity is going to, and you'll hear me hit this on a couple times, your integrity matters more than anything. That is your most valuable asset. I once raised $1 million without a single thing of paperwork because I ran into a problem where an investor had backed out last minute. And we were literally at the closing, and I needed $1 million. And someone who I knew that knew my character wrote me a check for $1 million and said, get me the paperwork later. That is the most valuable asset you own sitting here today is your integrity. I promise you. It will serve you. It's not even about the feel-good aspect. It is a financial benefit. So don't screw that up. And when you go to meet with somebody, if they ask you a question, the last thing I want is for you to be like, oh, no, yeah, I'm not even worried about this. Oh, yeah, not a problem. Okay, and I tell the Bentley analogy. I have a really good husband, so he surprised me with a Bentley one year for my birthday, which is probably a bad idea because I have a really bad driving record. And so it really sits in the garage most of the time. But here's the analogy. If my teenager, which now they're adults, but if my teenager came to me and said, hey, Mom, can I borrow the Bentley? And they're like, listen, it's no problem. I got this. It's going to be fine. Like the last thing they're getting is the keys to the Bentley, right? Difference. Kid comes to me and says, hey, I'd like to borrow the Bentley. I know it's a super expensive car. And I know it's not just about me having to drive wisely. It's about other drivers could totally like run into me. So I'm going to have to be like hyper vigilant on this thing. So I know there's a huge risk there, but like these are the things I'm going to do to make sure I'm smart and careful and how I'm going to handle it. Do you see the difference in the comfort level as a parent? Now, they're still not getting the keys to the Bentley, but maybe the Range Rover. So, but do you see my point there? There's a real learning lesson to be learned there, which is when you're meeting with an investor and they say, what about the competition? And you're like, oh, we're the only ones can ever do this. Okay, I promise you they've met with 50 U's in the last week that can do exactly what you're doing. And that does not inspire confidence. But what does is when you say, yeah, actually, these are the top 3 competitors. And here's the things that definitely we're aware of that they're doing, that maybe we're going to have to be, you know, keep an eye on. And here's how we think we can overcome it, and we know it's still a risk. All of a sudden, I'm like, I trust you, because you get it, right? So don't go in and pretend like you know everything. It's okay not to. But also be willing to get on there and figure it out. When I started that first company, I didn't know a lot about a lot of things. Like, if I told you all of them, we'd be here all night. But the point was, when I didn't know someone, I'd say, you know, I don't know the answer to that, but let me look it up and get back to you. Or I'd say, I don't. Is that something you could help explain to me? And you'll be surprised how many people are like, oh, I want to engage. Because see, as an investor, we want to put our money with someone who's going to be teachable and is going to listen. Because we've already learned the crappy, hard lessons. We don't want you to go through it with our money, right? We worked hard to get it. So we need to know you're trustworthy. And when you are doing something that's wrong and we tell you, you're going to self-correct. So that's some of the tips there for raising money. Now I want to talk a little bit quickly about running a successful company. And we're going to go super fast. Okay. Being great doesn't have to cost a lot of money. You got to operate within your means. You just got to get creative. Another Wonder Woman quote. She's seriously brilliant. You should trust her. We needed to figure out how to do branding in the company. We didn't spend a lot of money. I went to high school kids who will do anything for a Little Caesars $4.99 hot and ready pizza. Okay? Cheapest marketing you'll ever have, and they are brilliant at it because they're born that way. The likes thing, they've been doing it since they came out of the womb. So the younger, the better, and they'll give you the best ideas. We needed to figure out how to make security sexy. The idea was, hey, spy stuff is sexy. The CIA is sexy. You can't take your phone to work at the CIA, right? So we started a spy theme. Super cheap. We rebranded names. Instead of finance, you worked for the Treasury Enforcement Agency. Sound sexier? Totally, right? Instead of operations, it was the ROC, the Retrieval Operations Center. These are inexpensive things you can do, and there's so much you can do with graphics and branding, and these are just pictures of, like, we put screensavers on the desktops. All of this was really inexpensive. We had a wall of distinction. If you killed it on the job, you got your star on the wall, right? Like at the CIA. So these were like stupid, cheap ideas. T-shirts, by the way, some of the cheapest marketing you're ever going to have is T-shirts. We did MCG T-shirts from MediConnect Global that looked like, you know, FBI or SWAT, and the employees loved wearing them because it was cool. Things like that don't cost a lot of money, but it's a really good way to get the story out there. How many of you guys follow the Bucket List family? Yeah. When he started out, so he was a student when I was a judge at a competition at BYU, and he started out, like, they had t-shirts they were giving away with the thing on it, right? That's how the marketing with t-shirts is surprising. And we did everything really cheap. Even our trade shows, we got creative and just would give away spy toys because it's kind of cool and sexy and everyone thinks that's fun. The next thing I would say, and so be creative. Don't try to go spend a bunch of money. Don't go hire a big firm. Like, go to high school kids and get them a pizza. You're going to be amazed what you could produce. Recruiting people with values. This is the biggest thing. You guys are going to have a tendency to say, oh, I'll hang out with my friends or people I like or whatever. Listen, you don't got to hang out on a Friday night with everybody to have them be a really good asset in a company. But what you do need is them to have the same values you have. That does not mean the same religion. I have met a lot of people that are similar religions with totally different true values. Okay, that's a shame. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. So you need to look for people with values. That's what you want, because when the going gets tough, you need to trust that person. So at our company, we had certain core qualifications. Our kind of values were integrity, respect, attitude, dependability, flexibility, open to feedback, and goes the extra mile. If you find someone who's willing to do those things, they're going to be successful no matter what you have them do. Right? So we needed to go find those people. I didn't want to spend a lot on a campaign. I needed to send the message that don't self-select out just because you don't know healthcare technology from coming to work at our firm, because you might have good values and have been, my husband's a farm boy from Idaho, right? There's not a harder worker with more integrity than that guy. So finding those guys was hard. So I went to my employees, I said, hey, give me your dumbest talent in a couple of seconds, and we're going to run these as commercials at the movie theater, try to get people to like pay attention to maybe I should work at MediConnect, and I'll show you just 2 of these. There's usually like some music playing, but you don't need it. Actual employees filmed on their iPhones. You can see the production quality is awesome. People in the theater were like, okay, that guy can get a job. Maybe I can. Here's another one. And there was a whole campaign of these that we did. Crazy effective when it came to recruiting people, because all of a sudden I had mink farmers who'd never had a professional job in their life, but they knew how to work showing up to apply. I had welders who, you guys, you can teach somebody a skill. It's a lot harder to teach them values at the age you're hiring. So it's a lot easier to teach the skill than the values. Okay, the other thing is you got to catch people's attention where they are. We went to companies that had employees we thought had good values. The company espoused good values and would hang little signs that said, if you're reading this right now, you're in the bathroom stall. If you're reading this right now, you're clearly a good multitasker, and it just so happens we're looking to hire multitaskers. Here's our number, okay? We would try to go where they were. We'd go park the RV in the parking lot, our now hiring thing, and we would hand out hiring cards to people as they came out to go to lunch. Right? We did a lot of guerrilla marketing. Shame on you for not applying at MediConnect, so that people in our complex would actually see that sign and want to come and apply at our company. There's a lot of things you can do creatively and cheaply. That was $10 an hour for the people holding it. Don't tie it to anything. That's illegal, but if they're holding it, it's okay. But there's some effective things you can do that don't cost money. The best way we found people with values is we would give our employees these little recruiting cards, and we said, if you're out and about doing something in your life and somebody gives you awesome service, give them a "we're hiring" card. Tell them that you referred them. What better job interview is there than when you're going through a Wendy's drive-thru and someone is like super nice? Because that's a rough job, right? And they're like super nice to you, they make you feel good. That's the employee you want to hire. Okay, so you got to find those people the right ways. Again, the high school kids came up with this. This is what awesome looks like. That was our mink farmer, actually, clearly working on a farm. Not bad for the arms. So we did billboards off of that to get hiring. But these ideas didn't come from big, expensive companies. They came from kids. The next thing is, going back to the integrity, you guys, the #1 rule we live by. And again, it's not fluff, and it's not about, oh, this just feels good to say. Really, truly, our rule was do what's right. Let the consequence follow. We added the let the consequence follow to the board because we found that you're going to get sucked into a million situations where it seems like I have to lie to get ahead, I have to lie to win, I have to cheat, I have to, fudge it a little bit on this sales proposal because I know my competitor's going to fudge a little bit on theirs, and I want the 2 of those to be even. I can't let them win being dishonest, so I have to be dishonest. You could play games in your head all day long with that stuff. Okay, don't do that. Because you have to be committed to doing the right thing, even if it means you're going to fail. And it does mean there's going to be times you fail and the guy that lied won. And that's fine, because success is going to come and go, but your integrity is forever. And we've all seen in the news the stories of what happens to those people eventually. It catches up with them, whether it's in this life or the next, it will catch up with them, and it is not worth it. I go back to that fundraising story. I couldn't have raised that money if I didn't have that level of integrity. And with customers, you have to gain the same integrity. When you screw up, the first thing we did is we would pick up the phone and call the customer. Before they even caught the mistake, we would call and say, hey, we made a mistake. One of the scariest moments in my life, I had a customer that was doing about $10 million in revenue with me at the time, a year. And they were our biggest customer at that point. And I had to call them because somebody did something internally that was a mistake. And I had to call the customer and say, hey, we messed up. Here's how it happened. Here's how we're going to fix it. And this is how we're going to make sure it never happens again. And do you know what that customer said? Talk about a terrifying moment, like pulling in that car lot and seeing all those employees' cars and realizing it's all on me not to screw up because their families are depending on that paycheck. It's a lot of pressure. And it was scary, but I knew I had to do what's right and let the consequence follow. And you know what the customer said to me? Thank you. Most vendors would have hid that or lied about it. Thank you. And guess what they did next? They referred more business to us. Okay, so there's lessons to be learned here. It pays off financially. Communication is everything. Someone asked me at lunch or dinner tonight, what's the most important thing I learned as a leader? And this was it. If you don't communicate, someone's going to do it on your behalf, and it probably won't be your words. It is critical that it comes from you, that people know who you are, okay? We were growing from 50 people to 2,000 people, and we had offices in 2 countries and 4 locations, right? Trying to communicate with people got really, really hard and intimidating and scary because I'm one person. So I decided to start a daily blog, and I started writing every day to my employees, and it was not on I'm the CEO and I'm so great. That's the temptation, right? To act like you have it all down, but that's not honest, because guess what? There's not a person in this room that has it all down. Okay, that's why we're here, is to learn and get it all down, and we still won't by the time we die. But we're going to freaking try our best to get there, right? So I would communicate, I would say, hey, I made this mistake today. I learned this lesson today. Here's what I struggled with. Here's something that I'm learning from you guys. The more I put myself out there, the more vulnerable I was, the more people rallied to support me and help me succeed. No one wants to help a know-it-all. It's not fun, right? Someone already knows it. Why do you need my help? But man, it's really fun to help somebody that appreciates it, isn't it? So the more you're willing to be honest and raw and authentic, and I know it's scary and it's hard, but I'm telling you, people will rally to be around you. Started writing every day. And then we started a discussion board where they could post back to me. Also very scary. What if they were like, we hate Amy? One day somebody posted, Amy doesn't love this office down in Ephraim as much as this office in South Jordan because she spends more time there. That hurt, right? Because of course I love everybody, I'm just one person. But I didn't even have to say a word because instantly other employees got on and they were like, are you kidding? She writes us a blog every night. How many bosses would do that? And all of a sudden they were defending me and I was like, this is awesome. How helpful is this, right? So making things bi-directional and letting the feedback be there, don't be afraid of it, okay? And I know social media is out of control with negativity today. Don't be afraid to be like, you know what? If there's anything positive I can take from this, great. And the rest of it, bless your heart, hope you find happiness. Okay, making it inclusive. We would have an idea board and they could post ideas and the best ideas rose to the top. And as we did those things and people felt included in the communication, and by the way, I openly talk about my faith in God. Not because I'm trying to force anyone into my beliefs, but because it's important for you to know who I am, right? That is a big part of who I am, but I respect everybody else's beliefs too. But I'm not gonna hide who I am. And that's what's driven me and made my success, so I'm gonna tell that. But the more we did that, the more employees were like, we want to be part of this. Hey, can we buy other stuff with the company name on? And I'm like, sure, but I'm cheap. I'm not going to buy it. And guess what? They were like, we'll pay for it. So we sold all kinds of stuff to the employees at cost so they could actually wear it. And talk about good marketing. Some of the best you'll ever get. They had everything from baby onesies to belt buckles, you name it, right? With our customers, we learned we had to make it personal. When they used to log into one of the systems, they would see this girl from photo stock, not personal. So we decided one day, let's just replace it with photos of actual employees. And instantly they felt a personal connection, right, which was awesome. And then from that, we decided now we got to make it kind of fun because I like Google because every day on Google I see something different. That's kind of cool, right? Like it makes me want to go to Google and see, oh, what's going to be today? So our employees would put on little costumes and we'd have fun little, right? Well, I met the guy that created Toasted Marshmallow Day, or Pirate Day, National Pirate Day. I was like having dinner with him. I'm like, dude, we had a thing for you on our website. So they did that and it made it fun. We dropped boring newsletters because nobody clicks on them anyway. When's the last time you opened one of the corporate newsletters you got? Like never, right? So we were like, no one reads that. Let's actually make it relevant to what their life is right now. So instead, for Thanksgiving, we sent out a thing that says, if you want your wife or girlfriend to watch the Super Bowl with you, here's a tip. Tell her about the personal lives of the players. tell her which guys cheated on which Kardashian and which and which that. And we even gave them all the tips, and all of a sudden the men are like, that was awesome, it totally worked. She wanted to watch the game, right? So we would say that, so we sent that out to customers. These are health insurance corporate executives and lawyers and life insurance companies. That was our customer base. And suddenly they were opening it. And we're like, you want to look like a hero at Thanksgiving? Take stovetop right before it's done. Chop in some fresh celery. People think it's going to be homemade. They think you're a great cook, right? So we would literally give them things like, here's staycations with your family this weekend. Had nothing to do with MediConnect and healthcare technology, but what it did do is go, hey, you guys are kind of cool. What do you guys do? I want to do business with you, right? By doing things like that creatively and engaging with people and stuff they care about, it makes a difference. We would remember people's kids' names. We would send birthday cards for important events. When they had a sickness in their family, we would let them know the employees are praying for them, right? Those are the things that make people want to do business with you. Making it meaningful. One time we had one of our clients, his genealogy done for him, and presented it to him at a conference in front of all the other executives. People were like in tears. You want to talk about what gets loyalty in client base? These kind of things draw loyalty, okay? Be likable, because no one wants to hang out with Eeyore. He's a miserable person, right? On a Friday night, life sucks. No one needs that. There's enough of that in the world today, especially. It's so sad, right? But Tigger, he is fun, 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 and we all want to go hang out with Tigger on a Friday night. So remember that people are going to do business with people they like. I recently bought a bicycle, same price at 2 shops. I know it seems odd that I'd buy a bike because it's against my religion to exercise. I have a modified version of my religion I've created because I hate to exercise. And so, but my husband challenged me to go on a bike ride. I went, and I was 2 bikes, same bike, exact same bike, 2 different stores. But one of those salespeople was nice to me, and it was like several $100s more, and guess who I bought it from? The one that was nice to me. That's who I bought it from, even though I knew I was paying more. I full well knew, so did he. But I was like, dude, she was helpful. She deserves to sell. Right? People do business with people they like. And the more you treat people good, your employees, your customers, the more they're going to spend money, the bigger your company's going to grow, and that's what's going to get you to a $377 million exit, which is awesome. Okay, so you guys in this room, I know right now you're at a stage of life where failure seems like, oh, the worst thing ever, right? Okay, I have failed in so many different ways in my life. We don't even have time tonight because I want to leave some time for other things. But you did not fail at anything if you learned from the experience something that made you better. Keep that in mind. Okay, that's how you're going to learn. When I look back at my life, it's not my successes that taught me. Those were like the fun parts. But the stuff that taught me and turned me into who I am were the hard things and the struggles and the bad things, which, by the way, 99% of the time ended up opening the gateway to something so much better, right? Went through a really bad divorce with my kids when they were young. Look what I got instead. I'm just saying, who came out ahead? So... You got to quit worrying about failure. Don't think of it as a failure. Think of it as it's just a learning experience, right? Everything you do is a learning experience. Now, and remember, this actually got me through a lot. Everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. Please remember that. This whole rash of suicide and depression today terrifies me because it's a lot of people that somehow have decided that it's the end. It's not the end, you guys. The hard things, I promise you, you're going to look back and be like, thank heavens for that bad thing that happened because, man, led me to somewhere so much better. It's going to be okay. If she didn't go out with you, there's going to be somebody better right around the corner. So just hang in there. It's not the end. Okay? Pull out the goal poster. Where's my friends that thought it was silly? We're going to end with this point, and then I'll do questions. Okay. I made that poster when I was a young girl. About 7, 8 years later, I was moving offices. And I realized, looking at the poster, because I hadn't really paid attention to it, everything on that poster had come to pass, except for Steve Ballmer instead of Gates, but that counts because Gates retired. Ballmer was the new CEO of Microsoft, so I'm just saying. But all those things, I had won Entrepreneur of the Year, I was on the cover of Inc. magazine, I had all these things happen, right? And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then my dad came up to me and he said, hey, hun, by the way, we're moving to Africa. And I was like, what? Like he was going to change the fire alarm batteries because I have no idea how to do that, right? You can't be going to Africa, Dad. And he's like, well, our church had asked him to come and be in the temple presidency in Africa and also to be someone who performs the ceilings, the weddings in the temple. And he's like, listen, I want you to come out to Africa and I want to perform your wedding. And I was like, that's awesome, but I don't even have a boyfriend. I have 2 little kids. I'm running a company. I have 0 time. But that sounds awesome, Dad. Not going to happen. He's like, just take the picture. So I did, and I stuck it up. And less than a year later, I was in Africa getting married to that guy. So now I'm kind of like, okay, maybe there's something to the poster. It could have been a coincidence, right? And I get that. And I was like, it might be a coincidence. So I sat down and I decided to make a new poster right after we got married. And I was like, which was 11 years ago, just this last, a couple weeks ago. And so I sat down and made a new poster. I was like, okay, you know what? I want to sell my company for a bunch of money. I want to empower entrepreneurs and actually invest in them. And then I want to start a foundation that encourages people to look at entrepreneurship as a pathway to self-reliance, because look what it did for this single mom with 2 kids, right? If it wasn't for entrepreneurship, I couldn't have supported those kids the way I did. And I have 2 amazing kids, right? Turned out okay. So those of you that question, can I be a mom and a CEO and keep my faith? 100% yes. And to you men in the room that think that's intimidating, get over that, because it is the best thing you could encourage her to do.
Amen.
Whether you have the capacity for her to be a stay-home mom or not is a blessing, and if you have that and she wants that, take it all day long. No shame in that either. That is the hardest job you will ever do, ladies, just for the record. Super hard, okay? Because there's, like, when they're that little, they can't say, you did a great job today, here's your bonus at work and gold star. No, no, no. It's kind of like, you know, they cry. That's what you get when you do a good job. So it's a thankless job at the time. It's hard. So I tell my daughter, you will not make that your life plan. If you get to be home someday and you have that opportunity, great, take it all day long if that's what you want. But man, you're going to plan to be self-reliant no matter what, okay? So I think that's really important. You want that for your families. But I thought, okay, I'm going to go see the 7 wonders of the world. So I found a postcard and put it on there. Apparently there's more than 7 wonders, but you know what? I didn't know that at the time, so why even call it 7? A woman would not have called it 7 when there's more than 7. But that's the postcard I happened to find. I threw it on the poster. And then like the plane, because like who doesn't want a plane, right? Okay, so I made that poster right after we got married. And I want to show you over the next few years what happened. These are some of the, I've been to 4 of those 7 wonders already. Not because I planned it based on the poster, but because things in life happened that drew me there. Once was a board trip. They invited us to go down to Brazil. Another one, I had an office in India. Another one, I had a brother living in Petra and then Rome. Like totally unplanned, but they happened right after making the poster. Sold the company for $377 million. Started REES Capital, my angel investment firm. I was able to start the IPOP Foundation to encourage young people to look at entrepreneurship as a pathway to self-reliance. Okay? And I got my life back with my kids and my family. Those were the things on that poster. And that was a pretty amazing thing to happen over the next 7, 8 years, right? So now I'm kind of like, where's my poster doubters? Now I'm kind of like, dude, maybe there's something to the poster, right? Like everything on there. So my husband said, you got to, you know, what are you going to do next? And I said, well, I sold the company. I want to build a dream house. So I actually made not just a poster. It's like, I don't know, how many pages in my PowerPoint? Like 100 pages, 35, who knows? Somewhere between 30 and 100 pages of a PowerPoint with every room visualized, okay? These are just a couple of clips out of the PowerPoint. This is Mariah Carey's closet. Huh? So this was literally actual pictures from my poster, and I want you to see the house that I built over that next 12 months, okay? Now I'm thinking the poster, dude, I was telling you, I'm just saying, just stick with me, we're not done yet, okay? This is all 100%. I know, isn't it so pretty? There's so many more pictures. If we had time, I'd show you the whole 100-page PowerPoint of the actual house, but including the Disney castle I built in the basement, because every home needs a Disney castle, let's just be honest, right? And then my husband said, you got to make a new poster. And I was like, and remember, I just sold the company in 2012, built the house in 2013 and 14, and then he's like, what are you going to do next? I don't know. So I sat down and I was like, now I'm also very careful with the poster, because you don't want to mess with the mojo. I had one child that put on there, get lost, thinking, haha, I'm being funny when they were in high school, and now perpetually has directionally challenged the rest of their lives. So you got to be careful not to mess with the mojo, right? So I was like, okay, I don't know what I want to do next. I thought, well, a European vacation would be fun. I haven't been to Europe. I've been all over the world, but not Europe. And I okay, I want 16 grandkids. I told my kids when they have their 8th child, they get $1 million each. No negotiating down. I want 16 grandkids. I built 16 grand baby bedrooms in the basement. If you build it, they will come. It's kind of like an actual living goal poster. And my husband and I talked about it, because I hated that I was a college dropout. You guys, I speak at colleges all over the place, around the country, and I hate being a dropout. I wish I could have finished. It's always bugged me, right? Not because I think I would have been more successful, but because it was one of those life goals I wanted to accomplish. And my husband's like, put it on the poster. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going back to school. I teach these people. I can't be in the classroom too. And he's like, you don't know what's going to happen. I'm like, you're right. So I threw it up on the poster, right? And I wanted both my children to get married in the temple. That matters, and our family a lot to us. Our faith matters. And I thought, you know, I've been writing this blog. When I sold the company, that daily blog I was writing, the employees were like, well, even though you're leaving the company to go and be an investor, will you keep writing? And I was like, you don't have to read it anymore because I'm not your boss. And they're like, no, we want to keep learning from you. So I did. I kept writing. I have not missed a day of writing since 2010. Okay, not one day. That is a huge commitment. You guys, I've never in my life been a journal writer, so for me that's like miracle. But I've written, and what I do is I write about what I'm learning. And every day it's different. And I also write about when my husband does something dumb. So there's a ton of those in there. Really helps police your family, right? The kids are like, I know that blog was meant for me last night about smart alecky kids. And I'm like, no, really, no. I didn't say your name. But I write about what I'm learning. And it's not just in business, it's in life, right? The lessons I'm learning, and I do it in it's not professionally written. It's not, don't grammatically correct me because I don't care. College dropout, I get to write however I want to. But I thought I'll write a book, right? And before I even finish this poster, I want you to see what had happened immediately afterward. I got a call a few months later telling me I was getting an honorary PhD. Now, I started to cry, and they were like, wow, no one's cried before. I'm like, they didn't know anything about the poster, right? But to me, that was really meaningful, more than they will ever know. Over the next 24 months or 12 months, was it, that we went to all these places in Europe? Okay, this is actual photos. If you don't believe me, we really were there. P.S. for any Queen fans, the guy from Queen was on one of our cruise ships in London, which was like awesome. Okay, so the music group Queen, not the actual Queen. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so both my kids got married in the temple. Okay, in the next few years after that, and my first grandbaby was born. This is baby Flynn. He's like the cutest kid ever. And I just found out the grandbaby number 2, a little girl, who's going to be like the most spoiled child with the cutest, sexiest little sparkly shoes anyone has ever seen in their life, is on her way and will be here in a few months. So I'm very excited about that. Okay. And then Forbes called me right after I've been writing for my blog, and then Forbes found me and Huffington Post found me and said, can you post to our sites as well? So I've been doing some articles for them. And they reached out and said, hey, will you write a book? And I was like, well, it is on my poster, so I guess I better do it. Okay. And over the last year, I've been working on writing that book and taking things that I had like shared in other lessons into an ADD guide to what awesome looks like, which is actually not me. What awesome looks like is the person reading it. It's you guys. You're what awesome looks like, right? And those are some business lessons I learned, and there's little sections on entrepreneurship and leadership and being a great employee and just life fulfillment, okay? And it literally just got released. It was supposed to be out in time for the beginning of the semester, and they didn't get it done in time. So it's shipping from Amazon. You can order it on Amazon right now. It won't ship till the end of the month, but I called and threw a fit and said, I had committed to this talk, and they were expecting it would have been out already. So can you please send some pre-order copies from Forbes that I can let them if they want to purchase, and our charity will cover 20% of it to Forbes. So we have those for you guys. No one in the world has them yet, except for this room. So, and my mom and dad. Okay, my parents have theirs. So that's out tonight. You know, my point of sharing the goal poster, and for those that wondered about the goal poster, I cleaned it up. We're on a campus. I'm trying to be appropriate. For those who doubted the goal poster, look, I don't know why it works, but that goal poster has literally been the key to my success in life. So I want to challenge you guys to go home and make a goal poster, and I don't want you to just make a poster where you put stuff that you think is safe to accomplish. That question of what would you do if you weren't afraid, I want that on your poster. Okay, years ago I started in Forbes. I wrote an article about the goal poster in 2013, and it went around the world. And I have gotten people to send me pictures, digital pictures of their posters from all over the world. I had one guy in New York that sent me a poster, and he said, I'm a filmmaker in New York. I think it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. I'm going to make a poster so I can mock you and like show how wrong this is and how dumb it is. And I was like, that's fine. It was a little scary at the time. I'm like, well, this is going to suck. But a year later, he sent me another one and said, I want to apologize because everything on that poster happened. Here's my next poster. On that next poster, he had down he wanted to win the Cannes Film Festival, and like 4 or 5 months later, that guy won the Cannes Film Festival. So I have stories like that. I have one little girl that wanted to be a Disney princess. I'm like, I don't know how that's going to happen for you, but she did get a call from Disney to be the Princess and the Frog. I'm just telling you, I've seen crazy things happen because of the poster. I can't sit here and say, I know the scientific, I'm sure someone here, someone with a PhD that's not honorary. Look, I still want to be called Dr. Amy, but my kids won't, but it's fine. But someone could actually do the research and figure out why it works. I don't know. All I know is it does work. Okay, there is something that happens when you're able to visualize it that I don't know. Your decisions go there. I don't even care why it works. I just know it does. And it's working like really well for me, so I'm going to keep doing them, right? I can tell you that I've never, at BYU, UV, all these colleges, right? I speak all the time in years, and I have people that have come up to me that heard me speak 15 years ago that have made posters that have changed their life. I had one guy come up to me recently in Bountiful that looked like he could be on Duck Dynasty, that TV show, and like a really big dude, right? And I was like, with big tats and everything, and I was like, he is going to come up here and mock the poster after the talk. And he came up and he's like, you know what, I would have been the guy heckling you, except for my wife heard your talk and made one of those, and like everything on hers has come true. So I'm making one now too. And I get those all the time. Make the poster, and do not, look, what you guys think of yourselves is up in that box right now. I promise that that is not the case. That's how I saw myself. I was the college dropout that couldn't balance a checkbook, right? The point is, get over the fear and just try it, because like the worst you have to lose is that you're going to learn something that makes you smarter. And there is no shame in that game. So really, truly, go out there and try it. Put stuff on the poster that's crazy, and who cares if someone's like, I can't believe you put that, right? If you want to be president, put president on there. I don't care what it is. But don't limit the picture, because what God intends is for your picture to be a masterpiece. My blog is still out there 5 days a week. That's how you find me. Everyone better link to me on LinkedIn so I can follow you as well. I would like you guys to take a picture of your digital poster, and you can actually email it to me. You can do it with like digital images and a PowerPoint. You can do it with paper. I don't care how you do it, right? But send it to me and I will save it, and I've got a whole bunch of them, stories that are crazy years and years later, and it's really fun for me. That's like the joy I get, okay? So that's how you guys get a hold of me if I can help you. Let's do a few minutes of questions, and then we're going to have ice cream, and I will sign books for anyone that wants them. And you don't have to buy a book, you guys. That is like, look, my husband's like, is there an Audible? I'm like, not yet. No, it's hard. It isn't. Only because I made you know. Look, it's just got tips in there that I think potentially could be helpful for you. You can also go to the blog and just look at those. But who has questions of things I can help answer for you guys? And how many people are going to make a goal poster? I want a commitment. I want a commitment. I didn't serve a mission, but I want a commitment. Okay, and especially, no, you right there. Yeah, you. The one that didn't believe in it. I just want you to make one, and let's just see what happens, all right? That's all I'm saying. You have nothing to lose by making it. Who has some questions? Anyone? Oh, come on, it's your chance. We only have a few minutes. Yeah.
What brand are your shoes?
These ones are, oh, that's a good question. These are not my Christian. I usually wear my Christian Louboutins, but your campus is really big, and I needed a little bit thicker heel today to walk around. So I have no idea, but they're super cute, huh? I do have quite the collection of Christian Louboutin, though. I don't know why, I'm just really partial to that little red bottom shoe. If you men see the red bottom shoe, pay respect to it, okay? Who else? Yeah. The one with the white hair that's like Brian, right? Brian? Brian, is that his name? The one with the band? I love the band, I don't know, but...
He's the drummer.
The drummer. That's how we met. Awesome. My son was super stoked. Yes?
What is the biggest mistake you made? What did you learn from that?
Oh my gosh, there's so many, it's hard. That's like saying, I've made a million. Look, I've done every dumb thing from not knowing you had to drain your sprinklers and having the pipes freeze and destroy my entire yard, to not knowing how to change a fire alarm battery, so it beeped for years, to not communicating with investors and having an investor relationship go sideways at one point. Like, I really have made every mistake you can make, to typing in data. I was telling the kids at dinner, I didn't know you could transfer data electronically when I first started out. Look, computers were a new thing, all right, people? Just don't judge me. But I didn't know, so I literally would manually type patient information into a computer all night long, because I didn't know you could, like, import it. And I remember one night hitting a power button with my toe, and it turned off, and I hadn't saved it, and like devastating moments, right? But telling that story is what got someone to teach me that you could import data. So like, I had all these millions of failures, right? We had all these things happen, mistakes that were made. There's so many. I could write a whole book on just the mistakes I made. But the fact is, every time I did, I'd take a look at, why did I make it? Where did it lead me? You know, what am I going to do differently from now on? Because look, I'm okay with you making any mistake once if it's not with your integrity. Just try not to make any in that area. But the rest of them, that's how you're going to learn. But don't repeat the same mistake twice. Dude, that's just straight up dumb, right? It really is. Like, it's okay to make it once, learn from it, just make a new one and learn from that. So, but I've just made I mean, look, I made the wrong choice in marriage the first time, but I got 2 amazing kids out of it, right? So, did I get something good? Yeah.
You obviously come to the table with sales experience, customer service training, like the sales aspect. What would you say as far as, because in business school, is to just surround yourself with people where you can, with team members that can add to you. And so what would you say is some of your shortcomings, and that you look in your network to bring on new?
That's a great question. Did everyone hear that? He was saying that, you know, they tell you to surround yourself with people with other skills and kind of cushion your shortcomings, and he was asking what were some of mine. So I was not a finance girl starting out. Like I said, I didn't know what EBITDA was when I was starting my first company, even though I was generating EBITDA, which is your earnings before tax, income, and depreciation. Aha, see, I learned. But I didn't know some of those things, and so I had to hire someone to teach me how to do financial modeling and projections, because I didn't know it. And we have a tendency when we're young to want to hang out with people we think are really fun to hang out with on a Friday night, but your friends might not know. They might be good at the same skills you are, and so that's not the right person to work with. It's maybe the right person to hang out with, but not to work with. So for me, I did not love the detail of operations. I loved designing how operations should be. I loved designing software. So there were certain aspects of the company that I kept directly with me. My development team reported directly to me because I was really engaged in the user experience and in design. That house you saw, I designed every inch of that myself. I love the look and the feel and the flow and the thought that goes behind why we push this button or that button. And I was really talented at that. So I kept that directly with me. But operations, I had someone who was way better than I was at that, and someone who was way better at finance than I was. And so as a CEO, you eventually have to learn to be this good in every area, because you have to, number one, you got to fit on the BS flag. I didn't know how to write software code, so I would Google how do you write software, and I would read every white paper out there, and then I would hire people and force them to teach me. Like, I literally made my programmers teach me how to write database and middle tier and front-end code, not so I could be a programmer and do code, but so I could throw down the BS flag when I needed to. If someone said it's going to take 6 months and cost this much, and I could be like, no, that's not what it takes. So you have to learn this much about every area, right? Because you can't hire people and not know how to police if what they're doing is right. But you want to hire people that are smarter than you. Do not be afraid to hire people who are better than you. Like, that's the goal, right? I'm not the smartest girl in the room, but I am really good at hiring the smartest people in each area and then letting them do their thing. And that's what made me successful. So don't be intimidated by people that are better than you and think, oh, I have to keep them beneath me. You know, the way we kind of graded our leaders at the company, because we saw this trend that people were like, I'm a team lead, I have to keep my people on my team, or that means I'm not a good team lead. So the tendency was to hold people down from escalating beyond you. So we flipped it on its head and said, we're going to grade you as a team lead by how many people on your team become a team lead. Changed their entire attitude about how they led, right? So don't be afraid or intimidated to let people. You want people smarter than you. You want people smarter than you. Remember, they need to go deep in their area. I am never going to be the girl. Well, now I can't say that because I love financial models and I'm like obsessed with them. But I was never the girl that was going to like that because it was super boring. And, you know, like I said, I quit the econ class like, what, 2 weeks into it? So I didn't enjoy some of that stuff, right? But I learned to love stuff as I went. But I hired people that were like passionate about finance and passionate about HR. HR is not fun for me. I love culture building. I hate sitting in a room with someone crying for 20 minutes when you know you have 50 things to do. That's super stressful for me, right? So I'm like, so I needed someone who was a little more patient about that so that they could handle that better than me, because I was not going to be the most patient person. I mean, look, I think I'm pretty patient. My husband's like, you hush up. The point is, I have a lot to get done, okay? But do you understand what I'm saying? Like, hire people in those respective areas that have a passion for it, that you can, and then trust them. Trust them. Yeah.
What is your typical day look like when you first started your business, and then at the height of your business, and then down?
When you first start out, you're doing everything. Like, you literally have to wear every hat. And be okay with that. And don't start to look at any hat as more important or less important. If someone doesn't take out the trash and needs to get taken out, you got to do it. It's not less important than signing a contract. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just different. And so you're going to have to be willing to do everything. And you definitely don't want to surround yourself with people with too much ego. When we were hired people, we would give them 60 seconds to pitch why they should be there. Some people with like Harvard MBAs would be like, well, I'm too good to do that. You should be. Well, if you think you're too good to do that, then you probably don't belong here. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you have to find people that are willing to do everything, and they don't look at it as I'm better than or worse than. My developers that wrote software code were no more important to me than my salespeople. They equally mattered for different reasons, right? But you have to be willing to do everything at first. And you're just like a chicken with its head cut off at the beginning. In the middle, your job goes from doing everything hands-on to kind of then starting to escalate up where you're having to learn how to lead people to do and delegate. And delegating is so scary, because if they screw it up, right, then you have to fix it. And that's scary because you're like, I'm already busy, how am I going to fix it? So I learned if I wasn't delegating to someone, it meant there was an issue that I didn't trust them. And I needed to get to the root of that first. Because when you trust people, you will delegate. I also learned to put safeguards in place that would help me delegate. So if you put parameters for people and you say, here's the areas you can take risks in, and here's the areas that will really destroy the business. And the more I could define those for others, the more I could let them play without worry and delegate without worry, and then they would come to me only on the parts. But you have to define for people what those parts are. Does that make sense? So your job in that stage is really learning how to delegate. If you don't learn how to delegate effectively, you are never going to grow your business. And it is terrifying, because it's always harder before it gets easier. It is harder to train a new person until they're fully trained. So your life does get crappier until then it'll get significantly better, but you have to go through that. And then when you get really big, communication becomes your job. Communicating and getting everyone bought into the same vision and keeping everyone on the same page and letting everybody know the information, that's literally your job as you get bigger, is to be the communicator. And then you sell your company and it looks like whatever you want it to look like, which is fun. Okay, who else? They're like, there's ice cream out there waiting. Anyone else? Yeah.
Oh yeah. How did growing your company change your life? As you went along and as you developed your company, how did your life change as well? What was it like going from your humble beginnings over to owning a $4 million company?
You know, it's an interesting question, because you would think it gets more exciting, and in some ways it does, but it gets more scary too. Like I said, there's an intimidation factor. I think there comes a turning point in your business. I brought up the thing about the cars in the parking lot, because I literally remember one day driving into the parking lot and looking around and going, oh my gosh, if I screw up, every family that's in those cars, their life is impacted negatively. And that's a really big, like, ouch, right? And I think that same moment is when I went, but there's nothing I could do single-handedly to carry this whole company alone. It's too big for just me. Like, it's legitimately, I could not fix it all single-handedly. I could not run it all. So you kind of have this moment of going, I don't have a choice but to just, in my case, turn it to God and say, I'm going to put my best in. I know I'm going to screw up and make mistakes, but I'm going to do my best to fix them. I'm going to lead with integrity. And I just have to pray it's going to be okay. And I learned a lot about faith at that point in my life, because I would have these moments where people would say, oh, just have faith. And I'm like, well, God is not going to come down and draft this contract for this customer, right? Like, how am I supposed to have faith? And what I learned was faith, because I'm like, am I allowed to be with my family, or do I need to get this done because other families are depending on me? And there's this whole dilemma you go through, right? And what I kind of learned was that faith is about saying, it's okay to say to people, hey, you know what? What seems like an emergency very rarely is an emergency, okay? And so people are going to pressure you until they know that there's a reason you can't. And I learned that lesson. I was down in Texas at EDS was one of my clients. It's very extremely male company back then. In fact, we were in what they referred to it as the God Pod. It was like where the CEO used to be with all of his like cherry wood and his executives, and I was the only female in that room. And they were mostly like older guys in suits, and I'm this young girl, and I was like, I'm so intimidated, right? And we were scheduling a follow-up meeting, and at the end, and they said, does Thursday work for everyone? And I was looking at my calendar, and I'm like, oh, I have someone with my kids that day. It was like a school program. But I was so afraid to speak up, because I thought then they're going to think I'm weak and that, I'm just a girl and poo-poo me and all this. And one of the men in the room goes, hey, I actually have a kid's soccer game that day. And the other guys are like, oh, okay, cool. We'll pick a different day. And I'm like, oh, he must be so important, right? Because he said that, and I didn't apologize. And on the flight home, I was like, maybe if I do that, people will think I'm important too. So I started doing it, and it totally worked. And I learned a lot through that process, that it was like, it's okay to say to people, number one, stop apologizing, especially you women in the room. Oh my gosh, we apologize for everything. It's ridiculous. We would go to hire people, and the girls would start apologizing before the interview began. Look, if you apologize, the men are already afraid of you, and you apologizing is going to make them that much more afraid. Okay, because they're like, if you're scared, I'm already scared of you, now I'm terrified. All right? So as a woman, if you say, I have a thing with my kids, it's going to take 2 hours, it won't affect my work, and you're confident, people will be like, oh, okay, cool. Right? Just keep that in mind. Don't apologize. So the more I started doing that and being like, it's a family priority, or I've made the choice I'm not working on Sundays, it's a religious decision for me. You don't have to get into it. You don't have to debate it. You don't have to explain it away. I would just say to me, the more I did that, the more people were super respectful of it. And I was like, I could have been doing this the whole time, right? Like, it was one of those things, my insecurities made me do it the other way. And I learned faith is just having confidence to like represent what you represent and not feel apologetic. You don't do it in a rude way, right? I would say, that's just a personal choice that we don't work Sunday, but I will come in late on this day to do it, or I'll fix it on this day. That's kind of what faith is. Does that make sense to you guys, what I'm saying? So I think that's a lot of what changed for me and learned from me, was I learned how to have faith, that it's already beyond me. I can't do it all anyway, so you might as well have a little faith, right? And prayer's like super helpful. Who else?
Okay, so I think that's all the time we have for
sorry.
questions. Sorry. But can we give this girl a round of applause?